The Texas justice system is messy, so let's break it down. You're listening to So You Got Arrested, the podcast that tells you what really happens after an arrest. Hosted by Brick criminal defense attorneys, we talk to the people who've lived it, worked in it, and been shaped by it. Whether you're facing charges or just want to understand your rights, your options, and the smart moves that could change everything, we've got your back.
So welcome to So You Got Arrested, a Brick criminal defense podcast. Over the past couple of months, we've been trying to bring on as many candidates for the local races as we can. That way the public can be informed about, hey, who's running for these positions? Who are these people? What are their, takes on various issues? And so we're fortunate that today we have Ms. Jane Davis, who has joined us. She is a candidate for district attorney. Thank you for coming on, Ms. Davis.
Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from?
My name is Jane Davis. I am from San Antonio. I've been here 43 years.
Okay.
I came here to go to law school at St. Mary's and fell in love with the community and just stayed.
Okay. And so you came to San Antonio for law school. Where were you born?
I was born in Abilene, Texas. That's why I talk like this.
Okay. All right. Abilene. And so you come down to San Antonio and you're here for law school, and then you say, hey, I'm going to stick around.
Well, actually, if you really want the truth, and I'm almost ashamed to say it, Abilene, the wind blows all the time. And I was teaching public school in the Fort Worth area. And the wind blows there, too.
Okay.
And I came down to St. Mary's University, and I realized the wind doesn't blow down here. I think I'll stay.
Okay. So you were a public school teacher?
Yes, I was.
For how long?
About 13 years. Well, counting the college time I taught.
Okay.
I taught in public schools about 8.
And so was there a specific grade that you taught? What was that?
I taught in middle school, I taught life science and earth science, and in high school, I taught biology.
Wow. Okay.
And then in college, I taught at Angelo State out in San Angelo, where the wind does blow. And I taught out there, taught kinesiology, and I was the women's track coach. And we did very well. We were in the top 5 in the nation for the 5 years I was there.
Wow. So you're doing these things. You're a public school teacher, then you end up at a university teaching and coaching. What made you decide to go to law school?
I always have loved the idea of the law and what it represents. And so when I got the opportunity, of course, my parents encouraged me, and I got the opportunity and applied and just jumped in and did it.
So let me ask you a question, because you said, I love the idea of the law and what it represents. Well, what does it represent to you?
It represents a chance for people to live in a civilized society where rights are protected and where everybody has a fair chance.
Right.
And that's what it's so important. That's why it's so important in the DA's office that everybody has a fair chance.
So you go to law school at St. Mary's, and you said, hey, I stuck around San Antonio because the wind doesn't blow here, but I'm sure there were a few more reasons other than that.
Well, I had job offers other places, but I really love the honor and the culture in San Antonio, the great Hispanic culture, and I just love the people, and I love the parties and the fiestas and all of the things that people have here. I think it's a great place to be.
San Antonio doesn't hesitate to have parties or parades or fiestas for anything.
And growing up in Connecticut, it's there's not much wind, but there's snow. So and it's always here around this time. And so coming here, I couldn't agree more. The warm weather and the warm people really is kind of just really what's attracted me and got me to stay for hopefully the rest of my life. So.
Well, I have to tell a story about Judge Mike Machado.
Okay.
Did you remember? You're too young to remember.
I'm aware of Judge Machado.
Okay. I was a baby prosecutor in his court, and he mija, all that. And so I was scared because I was a baby prosecutor and I didn't really know what I was doing, and everybody would leave me and I'd be stuck there. And one time he says, "Mija, come here, come to the bench." I said, "Yes, Your Honor." And I get up there and he leans forward and he says, "Mija, I will never embarrass you in court. Relax." And I thought, I've been to church all my life. I thought, and I knew what grace was.
Right.
I didn't know what grace was.
Right. Well, and
until then.
And just so people know, not every judge is like that.
That is true. I've been in front of many that are not like that.
There are some judges who seem to take particular delight in embarrassing you or showing that they know more than you do. So for a judge like Judge Machado, who was a very well-respected judge, to tell you that, I mean, that really must have,
Well, it made me feel good, but, he was that way with most attorneys, most young attorneys. He would always try to help and give encouragement and tutor and all that sort of thing.
There's a judge who's currently on the bench, Judge Ron Hell, and he did this thing to me one time. I had never been in front of him, and I'd never been in his court, and I was a young attorney. And, it's a district court, so it's a felony. So I'm intimidated and scared. And I'm up in front of him, and, we resolve the case in front of him, and he tells the client, I just want you to know your attorney did a good job on your behalf. And I felt wonderful that he did that. And then I stuck around, and he did that for a lot of the attorneys. But it was a good thing because I was so nervous, and it kind of took the tension out of it. And I was worried, well, maybe my client notices that I'm nervous, and, and so it helped out in that regard. So when you have a judge who, shows a little humanity and kindness and understanding, it does make a big difference.
And it gives you confidence. It lets you know that the way you're approaching things is the right way and to continue.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
And so after law school, your law school, St. Mary's, you were a baby prosecutor. Was that Bexar County District Attorney's office?
It was. I started under Sam Millsap.
Was that your first position? Was as a prosecutor?
Well, first I was in the U.S. Attorney's office as an intern. When law school was going on, I was an intern to the U.S. Attorney. And then when I passed the bar, the first time I took it, and I passed, and then I got hired in Sam Millsap's office.
So just so people know, the U.S. Attorney's Office, that's the federal prosecutors. They prosecute federal crimes. And so then you end up in Sam Millsap's office as a baby prosecutor. Yeah. Okay.
And we started out, and I think I was stuck in grand jury for a while, trying to figure out how to do that and how to indict cases. And went from there to misdemeanor court. And from there, I advanced. I was promoted, and I went into family violence cases. I have been in every section of a DA's office. I was first assistant in Guadalupe County, where I did the civil section and the appellate section also. But here in Bexar County, I have been in every section of the DA's office, and I have served under 7 different district attorneys.
I was about to ask that. How many different district attorneys have you served under?
7, and I joke with my colleagues. I say I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
They, all of them have had something good that they have done.
Sure.
And many of them have made mistakes.
Sure.
And I've been in a position to be able to see what the mistakes were, to see what works and what doesn't work.
So you or at the DA's office as a baby prosecutor, you said, hey, I was in misdemeanor courts for a while, and now you're an experienced prosecutor. And is it different for the current young batch of prosecutors than maybe it was when you were a baby prosecutor?
I think it is. I think I've noticed a lot of difference. There was more camaraderie back when I was beginning.
Camaraderie between who?
Between the prosecutors.
Okay.
Wow.
And even the defense bar.
Okay.
And there was more trust. There was always once in a while a bad apple that you couldn't get along with, didn't play well. But most of the time, people had each other's backs. We had fun together. We did things that outside of work that were fun, and a lot of it is lost now. But at this point in my career, I'm a section chief. I'm the chief of the juvenile section, and we are in a different building than the main courthouse. And I have tried to foster in my unit that same camaraderie, that same fun. When we get a new prosecutor into my office, one of the first things I say to them is that I am all about fun. However, we have to get our work done. Once we get our work done, then we can think about having fun.
That's right.
So and it works really well. In fact, I go out to my people, and one of the things I think is very successful is I speak to everyone every day. And I have 35 people in my unit in the juvenile section. And it makes a difference because you have time to speak to them. You have time to make acquaintances deeper than what you normally would do, and you can know how they're doing, how their families are, what problems they're having, what their cases look like, and if they need some help and some mentoring, and that works really well. And I think it needs to be throughout the whole office.
Let me ask you a question. So my father was an attorney. He's deceased now, but he used to tell me all the time that the legal community is a very small community. And people don't understand that, in a big city like San Antonio. But all the lawyers tend to all know each other. And you mentioned earlier that, hey, every once in a while you get a bad apple. And that was always his big thing is, your reputation in the legal community precedes you. Like people find out who you are, what your reputation is, and they kind of work with you based on that. You talked about kind of the loss of camaraderie. Do you think maybe there's been a little bit of loss of professionalism within the legal community, or?
I think that there probably has, but it is not necessarily the fault of the young lawyers coming in. I think that they're coming out of law school not knowing what they really need to know. I think it's very important that when they come into a DA's office to work, that they have a mentorship program to teach them. I believe that a lot of the young prosecutors, they're excited to be here. They want to do the right thing, and they are trying so hard if they could just figure out what the right thing was.
Right. They need to channel that energy
That's
somewhere,
right.
but you need somebody to kind of guide it and
Right.
say, hey, this is what you need to
That's
be
what
doing.
I think, yes.
And just real quick, as a employee under Chief Davis, I can say that camaraderie was very real within her division. It was something that it's not just an open door policy. It felt very comforting and coming in and learning a system, right? Because starting personally as a family violence prosecutor, I was very confident in those cases. You kind of grow accustomed to those things, and shifting to a juvenile division is a huge change, new laws, new systems, new judges, obviously. And so going into her team was something that felt like a blessing. I learned and was very happy with that. And so also for the people listening, you mentioned being a part of every division in the DA's office. What are the divisions generally so that the community knows?
Well, there's 15 of them. And, we have intake. We have grand jury with intake. We have what used to be called special crimes. Now it's called the letters are PICKR, and so it's cybercrime, all those things there. We have family violence, if I didn't mention that. We have misdemeanor. We have appeals. We have civil. We have, what do you call it? When the word will come to me in a minute. It's where you have the children's court and Child Protective Services. It's coming to me now. And so we have all those different sections, and we have chiefs in every section. I think it is very important that we realize that probably we need to make some changes within the sections themselves for better structure and for better mentoring of the young prosecutors. But basically, those are the sections. I don't know if I got all 15 of them. We do have the Family Justice Center, which is a section of its own where the protective orders come from.
Okay. Yeah.
And during the time now, you said, hey, there's 15 different sections.
And I'm left out felony section, the one of the biggest ones of all.
Right.
Yeah.
The criminal trial.
Criminal trial division.
Criminal trial division.
And juvenile.
Has it always been that way? You've been through various DAs. Were there always all these different divisions, or?
There generally have been divisions, and sometimes they have put two divisions together. Maybe they've changed the name. Maybe they've changed the kinds of cases the division works on, but there generally has always been separate divisions.
Okay. And is that, the division structure, is that, I guess the idea behind that is you have dedicated prosecutors who are handling a specific type of case so that they become very good and very, familiar with that type of work.
That's the general idea. It is my view that a regular trial prosecutor ought to be able to try anything. And I know that there are certain cases that require a certain expertise, a certain nuance, and those prosecutors at a higher level should probably stay in those units where they can use that expertise. But I think all the young prosecutors ought to be exposed to the whole section group.
So they can be a little more well-rounded.
Yes.
Right. So we're coming up on the break. When we come back after the break, we're going to continue with our conversation with Jane Davis. She is a candidate for district attorney here in Bexar County.
The attorneys at Brick Criminal Defense have helped over 5,000 clients move on with their lives. When an arrest or accusation turns your life upside down, we have the knowledge, experience, and integrity to get your life back on track. Traditional legal ethics, modern legal tactics, the best defense possible to get you through the criminal justice system. Search Brick Criminal Defense to see our reviews and find out why so many of our clients have trusted us to fight for them. Brick Criminal Defense, helping our clients move on with their lives.
So at some point, you decide, hey, I'm going to go ahead and run for district attorney. What is it that led you to that decision?
I filed on the last day of filing when I saw the list of the candidates.
Okay.
And I realized that while they're all probably nice people, none of them have the experience that I do, none of them have the temperament that I do, and none of them have the maturity that I do to run this office of over 500 people. So that's why I said, I care about this community. I care about this office. It is a crucial time in the office for the DA's office to be able to serve the people of Bexar County and to serve the people well, efficiently, fairly, justly. And I believe I am at this point the person most qualified to be able to lead that office, and that's why I filed.
So you had said, I took a look at the list and I said, hey, these people don't have the same experience or temperament that I do. What is it about your experience and your temperament that you feel like, hey, this would be a good position for me?
Well, the experience, we've kind of mentioned it. I've worked under 7 different district attorneys. I know what works. I don't have to go frivolously off of trying to figure out a new scheme to get people's attention, to look like I'm doing something. I know what works. And the whole idea of being efficient is, I think, you don't want to waste people's time and money. You want to be fair with the public. You want the public to have confidence in the justice system. So those are the sorts of things I'm looking for.
So are there any, having served under a bunch of different DAs, you've said, hey, I've seen, some good things, some bad things. So I'm sure you've kind of picked and chosen things that you've seen that have worked, things that haven't worked. Are there any specific changes or policies that you have in mind that, hey, if I'm elected, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, I brought a list. Can I refer to it?
Absolutely.
Okay. One of the first things I would do as DA is to make sure that a victim of family violence has contact with the DA's office within 24 hours of the event.
So is that not the case now?
No, it's not the case. We have advocates that try to contact the victim, but I don't think they're successful, and we certainly don't have the 24-hour rule. I think that we need to contact that person, and I'm going to say her, because it's usually the woman. I'm going to say that she needs to know what her avenues are, what her options are. If she needs to escape, she needs to know that. If she needs help in rent or clothing or food or housing, she needs to know about the Family Justice Center. She can go there. She can go to other agencies. She needs to know this. We need to contact her within 24 hours, and then we need to keep in contact with her. And I think there needs to be a way that the victims have a use of the victims portal. They can find now about the case. They can go into the Bexar County District Clerk's office and find out about their case. But we ought to have a portal in the DA's office so that they could find out specifically about their case, when it's set, what's going to happen at this next setting, and that sort of thing.
To keep them informed,
Yes.
and up to date, and
Yes. And to be protected.
Right.
I think another thing that we ought to do, we've mentioned backlog many times about the DA's office. And when I go out in the public, people ask about the backlog. So it's been mentioned. And I believe one of the things we could do about that, we have what we call a strike force, a group that is trying very hard to work on that backlog and get it taken care of.
And the backlog, these are just cases that are pending and unfiled.
Yes.
And they've been pending and people are waiting for them to get to
Right.
court.
It's at the intake level. And I think it would be helpful if we would have an assistant district attorney who is has some experience to go to each law enforcement agency, if we would be allowed or invited, to go to their headquarters or their substations, put an ADA there so they could assist in report writing and in what is needed for the case. The law enforcement people work up a probable cause level. We have to work beyond a reasonable doubt level. Right. And so it is very important that the officer understands the kinds of things, kinds of evidence that we're going to need to prosecute the case. As it stands right now, we have law enforcement writing the reports, sending them to the DA's office. Somebody in the DA's office refers to it, looks at it, decides, oh, we need this, a piece of evidence. They send it back to the officer. Mm-hmm. The officer puts it on his desk for a while, and it sits there, and then finally he gets whatever, and he sends it back. And so that's a lot of time waste.
Right.
And it could be helpful if we were to put an ADA, to make the ADA available to assist. Not to try to write reports for the officers, no, but to assist, to confer.
To make it a little more efficient.
Yes.
And so when the file arrives, it's already...
It's more complete.
Right.
Yes.
It's a complete file. And Scott Simpson, former defense attorney with Brick Criminal Defense, now prosecutor in the Atascosa County, he always boasted and really loved talking about his time being able to work with officers directly. And and so I think the word you used of efficiency is really kind of the focus there, because that's something where up front, rather than all this time wasting, passing back and forth to get really what's needed for the case, it's all kind of done up front.
Right. And then you have the situation where one of the next things I would think be very important for us to do is to work better with law enforcement.
Right.
Because we are, right now, it seems that the DA's office and law enforcement are at loggerheads and don't trust each other and play the blame game all the time, and that's unnecessary.
And those are two entities that have to work together.
Absolutely.
Right? If justice is to be done.
And me being the chief of the juvenile unit, we have another 46 school districts to work with those law enforcement people. Yeah. And I have found that if we will communicate, work together, be open, we're not hiding anything, we're very transparent. We just say, this is what we need for the cases. Can you produce that? And then if it can't be produced, then that case goes away because we need a certain amount of evidence.
Right,
of course. Yeah.
And so what are your thoughts on, things like specialty courts? I know that specialty courts are, just so people know, specialty courts are where you take a certain type of either defendant or caseload, and you have a court dedicated to that. So you might have a mental health specialty court, people dealing with mental health issues. There's veterans courts, things like that. What's your take on that?
I think they're very good.
Okay.
I think that, in there's 3 district courts in juvenile, and each court has about 5 specialty courts assigned to it. A pre-adjudication drug court, a post-adjudication drug court, a mental health court, a trauma-informed court, child protective services, where they've got a criminal case, and they're also in child protective services, a crossover court, a mind court. There's so many good courts that actually look at what the issues are with that youth and try to address them in a way so that the youth can learn to make good choices and not have to continue on in a life of crime. We have a reentry court for, say, a youth has been locked up or placed outside his home, and now he's going to come home and he's going to go back into the same community where he was.
Right.
And so if we don't aid that person, what's to stop him from going right back to what he was doing?
Right.
Absolutely.
So you have to understand that most of the people who get locked up or get put on probation, they're not going to be there forever. They're going to get out. And when they do get out, you want them to have been rehabilitated to some point where they can live as a good citizen.
A functioning member of society.
Yes.
Right.
So important. They're going. The capital murderers. Those people don't get out, but most people get out,
Right.
and get off probation. So you want to look at the. I know I'm not supposed to use any legalese words, but you look at the criminogenic factors that cause this person to be there.
Sure.
And it's important to address those factors and help that person to be able to recognize them and to avoid the situations that got them there in the first place.
Well, that's one of the things that I respect about a good juvenile prosecutors and good juvenile judges is they're looking at both the offense and taking responsibility for the offense, but rehabilitation.
Absolutely.
And trying to address, like you said, those factors that may have put this person into a circumstance where, they're strained, they're walking from the straight and narrow, they kind of got off the path, and we're going to try to get them back on. And so I think being that you're the chief of the juvenile section, I think you bring an interesting perspective in that regard.
Well, I think I've learned a lot, and I've learned a lot about the data that has been collected over the years on what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. And when I first started out, I don't know how far back we go, but when you first started out, I may have been the bad prosecutor that was just out to get them and, hit them hard and hit them early, and that's going to fix them.
Right.
Well, we have learned from doing research, studying the data that comes in, we've learned that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And the least you can touch a kid that is a juvenile offender, the least you can touch them, the better off they come out with the recidivism factor.
Right.
So we have to look at the data. We have to look at the research. All the criminal justice research has been done, the metadata. We need to use that as far as looking at our sentencing guidelines and our recommendations. I know that we have judges that are going to do the sentencing, but we need to know what would be a good thing.
What's appropriate to ask
Yes.
for?
Right.
What's an appropriate recommendation to make? Yeah.
Yes. And the same thing is true in bail, bail bonds. We have a situation where that's a big controversial issue.
Especially with the latest reforms.
Yes. And it seems that everyone wants to blame the DA's office for the amount of bail that's been set. But people have to understand that the DA's office doesn't set bails. The judge sets the bail. The DA's office makes a recommendation. But it's important in bail it would be easier and better and more efficient if we had some risk assessment tools to look at that person who's been charged with a crime and see what their risk is to reoffend or to hurt somebody or to not show up for court. And with some good assessment tools, some good ways of supervision, we probably could reduce some of the bail situation problems.
And that goes to the efficiency, right? I've said before, and Stephen and I have always talked about it, where the part I loved about juvenile, what I loved learning about it was a respondent sees a juvenile probation officer immediately upon arrest, and
Absolutely.
they have this background done and kind of a conversation with the judge is made, and everybody's really hands-on. And so it sounds like you want to bring some of those assessments and tools to adult bonds and adult bail so that when a person is released, they kind of early on have those tools, or at least the system knows some things that they might need in being released.
I think that would be a good way to improve the system.
Kind of addressing the individual as
Right.
opposed to just, oh, well, you're a defendant, this is what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is what, to me, justice always is. Justice is always specific to the circumstance and to the individual. It's not just a blanket policy
Needs to
or
be
a blanket
tailored.
rule.
Yeah. But with the people who are truly dangerous, they need the high bonds and they need to be locked up.
Sure,
Right.
absolutely. And I think they've changed the laws recently to, the magistrates have a little more, a little bigger hammer when it comes to some of those things.
Right.
So are there any other specific policies you would like to address?
Well, yes. I would think that right now there's been talk about the Mental Health Diversion Center for nonviolent low-level crimes. I think it's very important that we encourage that in this county. I think we should call for an end to the dispute between the city and the county as far as magistration goes. We have two places of magistration. I think it's a waste.
We had
not
an
efficient.
entire podcast about that where I was shocked. I didn't know any of this. I was shocked to learn that people get magistrated at one place, and then that paperwork basically is voided out, and they go and they get magistrated again, which seems like a huge inefficiency.
It is, it takes a prosecutor in both places. I mean, it's
Well, it delays the amount of time. There's a delay in when people can get released. So
That's
your loved
right.
one gets arrested.
Yep.
They're waiting to get bail set, and then there's just this kind of inefficiency where they have to see one judge, but technically that judge doesn't count, and they have to see another judge in order to get bail set. And the result is delays in people being able to post their bail and get back to their families.
And it wouldn't be solely up to the DA to be able to stop that, but I think one of the things I would want to do is to work toward that and keep pointing out how much better it would be. I think another thing we should have is a restitution center where someone has been committed a crime, but that's a low-level crime, not a violent crime, but can make restitution to pay back, to put the victim, make the victim as whole as possible again. I think that used to have one, but we don't anymore.
Somebody smashes the window on your car or whatever it is, they're obligated to go and pay for that.
Yes. Yeah. I believe that we should communicate with law enforcement much better. I think that we can work as a team with law enforcement. And I think that we also need to work better with communication within the office with each other and help. And I think there needs to be a mentoring program, a training program. And used to be there were sister courts where the felony prosecutors would filter down and help the misdemeanor prosecutors and teach them. And I think that's a good idea. I don't know if I would call it sister courts or what we would do, but I think we need to foster that kind of mentorship again.
Someone to go to if there's questions on low-level things, and you have that kind of high-level prosecutor that's very experienced to teach them. Yeah.
And we don't need to make young prosecutors afraid to ask questions.
Right.
They need to be open to asking and getting help and not being afraid.
So, time flies, and we are up against it. So, but before we go, if somebody wants to get more information about you, about your policies, maybe donate, is there any website?
Yes.
Is there anything? Okay.
www.davisforda.com.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So this has been Brick Criminal Defense with Steve Barrera, Jacob Lindbergh, and Jane Davis. She is a candidate for Bexar County District Attorney. Now, you have opponents, and they're in the primary, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when do people need to get out and, if they like what they've heard, they want to cast their ballot for you, when does all that take place?
February the 17th it starts, but be sure you're registered to vote, and that's February the 2nd. That's coming up. So
Very
make
soon.
sure you have your registration, and then the 17th of February is when you can start voting.
Okay. Thank you all for listening. Take care.
Ooh, I didn't get to say.
Thanks for listening to So You Got Arrested. If you found this podcast helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. For more legal insights and real talk from the front lines of the Texas justice system, follow us and subscribe. And remember, Brick Criminal Defense has your back. For more information, visit us at brckdefense.com.